Long ago, Atlantis, the legendary utopian city, was lost beneath the waves of the Atlantic Ocean. Was it just a myth fabricated by the philosopher Plato, or are the ruins of the city the only remnants of this magnificent civilization that fell thousands of years ago? Hello and welcome back to the Historian's Table. I'm your host Ethan, and today's topic is the lost city of Atlantis. Most people have heard of its story. It's been rooted in pop culture for decades, but many are unaware of the truth it holds. In this Atlantis deep dive, we'll uncover the true secrets of history's greatest forgotten civilization. Ancient Greece, 360 BC. The Greek philosopher Plato describes Atlantis to his peers.
It was a civilization with riches beyond imagination, boasting a navy with no equal.
In the time-honored dramatic style of ancient Greece, Plato preaches of the follies of human corruption.
This, my friends, is the legend of Atlantis. 9,000 years ago, beyond the Pillars of Heracles in the Atlantic Ocean, an island larger than Libya and Asia combined was inhabited. The prosperous, righteous empire commanded a masterful navy, ruling over many islands in the Atlantic Ocean. 10 kings each ruled over 1/10 of the islands. The Atlanteans, wielding great power and authority, were corrupted and sought to conquer all of Europe and Asia, but were defeated by ancient Athens due to their hubris and greed. Ancient Athens, a truly virtuous society, repelled the Atlanteans, preserving the world as they knew it. Through divine retribution for the society's treason, violent earthquakes and floods destroyed and swallowed Atlantis, leaving no trace of the once glorious civilization.
This is the classic, most prominent tale of Atlantis. But how did Plato get these ideas in the first place? Solon, a renowned Athenian statesman, lawmaker, and poet. Solon, after reforming Athenian society during a time of social and economic crises, spent a decade traveling the world. Among the places he visited was Egypt. While in Sais, the capital of Egypt at the time, Solon learned about Atlantis from Egyptian priests, and according to Plato, Solon stayed and studied the Egyptian accounts of Atlantis, among other things. The Timaeus reveals key information to understanding Atlantis' origins. It's first revealed that the last time Atlantis was above water was roughly 9,000 years before Plato's time, making it roughly 11,500 years before modern times. Then we learn that the Atlanteans were once a moral society, but due to their greed, they were led to destruction. Finally, we know that a major cataclysm occurred to submerge Atlantis during their moral collapse. With these broader details, we can make vague assumptions of the city's origins, but the specific details lie in the Critias, details that replace myth with reality. Plato began writing the Critias shortly after the Timaeus. Here, Plato finally goes into detail regarding Atlantis' precise origins and opulence. According to Plato, in the beginning, when the gods of the Greek pantheon were allotting their territories, Poseidon claimed the islands of Atlantis. Cleito, who was the daughter of two autochtones, stole Poseidon's heart. After the death of Cleito's parents, Poseidon reshaped the land near her home into concentric rings of land and water, creating the core of Atlantis. Out of their love, Cleito bore 5 sets of male twin demigods. The firstborn, Atlas, inherited the kingdom of Atlantis. His twin brother, Gadeirus, was given the land beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Atlas and his brothers became the 10 kings mentioned in Timaeus. Being the eldest, Atlas held supreme authority over the island and all of his brothers, and they followed his rule. Luckily for us, the Critias specifies how grand Atlantis became.
3 rings of land were separated by 2 rings of water, which surrounded the central island, providing sanctuary from the harsh seas. At its heart, the central island housed the divine lineage of Poseidon in a radiant palace of orichalcum, bronze, and tin, the very metals that assured their prosperity. The first ring of land, the innermost, nurtured spiritual and intellectual convergence. Temples were erected around the bioluminescent gardens of Atlantis, becoming marvels of Atlantean science. The second ring accommodated the daily life of Atlanteans. Commerce and community thrived, fostering a lively suburbia. Goods from all over the known world could be found here, reflecting the grandeur of the Atlanteans' reach. The outer ring was outfitted with fortified walls, which housed the city's formidable military. Lastly, the water rings were more than just moats. They supported a thriving ecosystem of flora and fauna, and ornate bridges linked the city's layers together, contributing to the city's spectacle. Now, take heed and revel in Atlantis's unparalleled beauty and might. Throughout recorded history, many civilizations have matched Atlantis's influence and wealth, but the majority never met the same horrific end: divine annihilation.
At its peak, Atlantis contained myriads of palaces, temples, harbors, and docks. Its people were intelligent and creative, powerful and virtuous. So what caused the great city's deterioration? Plato doesn't specifically describe the events that led to the city's corruption, but we can draw some conclusions from the text. First, we know Atlantis had immense natural wealth. Precious metals like orichalcum and gold were abundant. Over time, the emphasis on wealth accumulation may have shifted from communal sharing to individual gain, beginning the civilization's downfall. The desire for more resources and territory may have led to Atlantis's imperialistic ambition, which, as history has shown, frequently results in greed. We can assume that over time, the moral decay of the Atlanteans led to arrogance and entitlement. The 10 kings, who at this time were direct descendants of the original 10, could have also begun to act in their own interests rather than for the common good. All things considered, human nature might have been the root cause of the once great city's decline. In the Atlanteans' downward spiral, the attempt to overthrow and enslave ancient Athens, another virtuous and just society. Because of their pride and loss of divine favor, the Atlanteans were defeated by Athens. At this point, Atlantis' moral decline was so severe that Zeus himself summoned a council of the gods to determine the city's fate.
And so the gods convened, and Zeus passed judgment.
Brothers and sisters, the Atlanteans have forsaken wisdom for vanity. They who once honored us now seek to conquer all of our creation, beyond what we've granted. The earth herself cries out for retribution. For their transgressions, let us show them the might of Olympus.
The ground split, shaking Atlantis to its core. As the people panicked, once great temples fell. Lightning struck the palaces on the center island, shattering the Atlanteans' only hope of survival as storms continued to rage. The oceans that once nurtured Atlantis began to swell and swallowed the outer rings of the island. In just one day and night, Atlantis was wholly annihilated.
Plato's narrative of Atlantis has long been interpreted as allegory, simply a story to teach a lesson. There is significant focus on the moral decline of Atlantis, a theme Plato discusses often. In The Republic, one of Plato's other works, he outlines his vision for an ideal state governed by wisdom and justice, rather than power or wealth. Plato's emphasis on the superiority of virtue over corruption is reinforced in the Atlantis legend. Ancient Athens, a civilization representing justice, defeats the great Atlanteans regardless of their military advantage. Many scholars agree that Plato crafted the story to entertain, but more importantly, to critique his own society. Atlantis was a metaphor for any civilizations that stray too far from the path of wisdom and justice. With Plato's tendency to blend myth and philosophy, we can pretty much immediately assume that Atlantis never existed. Besides, there's no archaeological evidence that could support its existence. Right? From 3000 BC to 1100 BC, on the island of Crete and other Aegean islands, the Minoan civilization thrived. The Minoans were one of the earliest civilizations to settle in Europe, known for their artistic, architectural, and seafaring achievements. Their society was a complex thalassocracy, which is a state that gains its power and influence from its control of the sea, which matches perfectly with the Atlantis legend. The Minoans were of great culture, sporting a complex palace in Knossos with advanced engineering. Their naval prowess, being the definite source of their power, aligns with Plato's description of Atlantis. The island is mostly above water today, and it does have a circular shape. And, coincidentally, the Minoans were wiped out by a massive catastrophic event. Around 1600 BC, the volcano on the island of Thera, known today as Santorini, erupted with a disastrous force, marking the eruption as one of the largest known volcanic events in history. There is evidence that the eruption caused tsunamis, earthquakes, and ash fallout, severely affecting the Minoan population. While it's debated whether the civilization was completely destroyed or just faced significant societal collapse, the Minoan civilization did fall around this time. There are complications with some of Plato's claims, however, like the Minoan civilization wasn't around 9,000 years before Plato's time, as his dialogue says. Even with a couple of controversies, this is a fairly accepted explanation for the origin of Plato's Atlantis legend. And, if you'd like more details, I've actually already done a video on Minoan society, and you can find that link in the description and at the end of this video. But this connection can't be used as proof of Atlantis' existence. So how can we move forward with all these contradictory claims and facts? Well, there is a way to make a little sense out of Plato's claims. I align with the belief that Minoan society was the Atlantis Plato discussed, a society that the Egyptians may have had a record of that the Greeks didn't. It's common knowledge that Plato's Timaeus and Critias were written at least a few years apart. We don't have exact dates, but it's believed Timaeus was written around 360 BC. Plato never got to complete the Critias, which suggests Plato died before he could finish it, dating it around 348 BC. A difference of 12 years. If you remember the distinct details in each work, you'll notice all of the precise details Plato gives about Atlantis lie in Critias. This information also happens to align with the beliefs of the Greeks at the time, with the reverence of the Greek gods. With this in mind, I believe it's possible that the Timaeus may have more validity in comparison to the Critias, alluding to Minoan society. The 12 years between the compositions were more than enough time for Plato to fabricate the very specific details we see in the Critias. These details also happen to support his civilization's spiritual beliefs at the time, To summarize, Plato, being inspired by Atlantis' virtue, later sought to use the Critias to critique his own society in an attempt to teach an invaluable lesson. A lesson that remains invaluable to this day. The legend of Atlantis is a warning from the past. Atlantis, whether real or allegorical, perfectly portrays the perils of moral decay. In our modern era, we are witnessing the greatest technological marvels and achievements in history. However, early on this path to greatness, humanity began a trend of distrust and greed. Our tendencies to constantly fight amongst each other, along with the environmental crises we've created, make it obvious we have fallen out of balance with the universe. These could be signs, the same signs the Atlanteans might have ignored 12,000 years ago. If you ask me, the call to action is clear. Engage in your community, question the status quo, demand accountability from those in power, and above all, foster a culture of empathy, equity, and environmental stewardship. Atlantis isn't a myth to entertain. It's a testament to the timeless struggle between greatness and destruction. Let's choose our next steps wisely, because if Atlantis is ever found, we may discover it's too late to reverse our own story. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Ethan, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I encourage you to join in on the discussion in the comments or subscribe if my take on history interests you. Remember that you've always got a seat at the Historian's Table. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.